Maya Johnson walked through the airport, calm and quiet. She wore jeans, a black jacket, and sunglasses. No one knew who she really was. To most people, she looked like just another tired woman flying home. But behind that calm face was something powerful. She was the chief of police in her city, and she had just finished a long and dangerous undercover mission. All she wanted now was peace and a quiet flight. As Maya reached her gate, a voice called out over the speaker, "Flight 782 to Chicago is now boarding." She joined the line, keeping her head low. She didn't want attention. She just wanted to sit, rest, and breathe. But the day had other plans. Just as she stepped into the aircraft, a tall, middle-aged pilot walked past her. He bumped into her shoulder roughly without even looking. "Watch it," he muttered. Maya looked up, surprised. She didn't reply. She just kept walking. The flight attendant smiled and pointed to her seat. Maya had a window seat near the back. She sat down and noticed a teenage boy sitting beside her. He looked nervous. His hands were shaking. "First time flying?" Maya asked kindly. The boy nodded. "Yeah. I hate planes." Maya gave a soft smile. "You'll be all right. Just breathe." The boy smiled back, feeling a little better already. The plane filled quickly. People stuffed bags into overhead bins. Babies cried. A man argued over a seat. It was like any normal flight, until the sky turned dark. 20 minutes after takeoff, turbulence started. The plane shook hard. The lights flickered. Passengers gasped. The boy next to Maya gripped the seat tightly. "It's just bumps in the sky," Maya said calmly. But then, the worst happened. A flight attendant carrying drinks lost her balance. A full glass of orange juice slipped and flew, right onto the uniform of the same pilot who had been rude earlier. The entire front row froze. The pilot's white shirt was soaked. His face turned red with anger. He looked around, then stormed out of the cockpit. Everyone expected him to yell at the flight attendant. But instead, he walked straight toward Maya. "You did this, didn't you?" he snapped. Maya stood up slowly. It was turbulence. "Calm down." But the pilot didn't calm down. Without warning, he slapped her across the face. Gasps echoed through the plane. People dropped their phones. One woman screamed. The teenage boy beside Maya looked like he had stopped breathing. Maya didn't move. She touched her cheek slowly. Her eyes were steady, cold, focused. The cabin went silent. Every eye turned toward them. No one dared speak. Even the flight attendants looked frozen in place. The pilot stepped back, suddenly realizing what he had done. Maya slowly reached into her jacket. For a moment, it looked like she was about to strike back. But instead, she pulled out a small phone, the black, official-looking device with a golden eagle emblem on it. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't threaten. She simply dialed one number and placed the phone against her ear. The pilot stared, confused. His hands trembled. Maya spoke just one sentence into the phone. "This is Chief Johnson. I need confirmation at O'Hare on arrival. Priority code. Red shield." Then she hung up. The phone disappeared back into her jacket. She sat down, crossed her legs, looked out the window. The teenage boy finally found his voice. "AA, are you police?" Maya looked at him. Her lips curved slightly. "Something like that." The air inside the plane was tense. Nobody said a word. The man in the next row quietly pulled out his phone and started recording. A woman in the back whispered to her husband, "Did that pilot just slap her?" Yes, he did. And now he looked like he regretted it. Maya sat in her seat calmly, her eyes staring out the window. The slap mark on her face was still fresh, still red, but she didn't touch it. She didn't blink. She didn't even breathe heavily. She looked steady, too steady. The teenage boy beside her was still in shock. He hit you. Why didn't you say anything?" Maya turned her head slightly and gave him a small smile. Sometimes silence is louder than shouting. Up front, the pilot paced back and forth near the cockpit. His hands were shaking. He looked around the cabin and noticed that several passengers were now filming him. "Stop recording. Put those phones away," he shouted. No one listened. A flight attendant stepped close to him and whispered, "Captain, she made a call." And it didn't sound like a normal call. "I don't care who she is," the pilot snapped. "She spilled a drink on me." The flight attendant leaned in, eyes wide. "Sir, I think you just hit someone important." The pilot's face went pale. He looked down the aisle at Maya, now sitting with her arms folded. She didn't look angry. She didn't look scared. She looked like someone waiting for the right moment. The pilot turned back and rushed into the cockpit. Meanwhile, Maya pulled a small notepad from her jacket. She wrote down 3 things. Time of incident. Pilot name, written on his badge. Captain R. Wilkins. Witness count, 14, plus 2 crew members. Then she closed the notepad and placed it in her pocket. The teenage boy leaned closer. "You're not just police, are you?" Maya looked at him for a second. Then she nodded slowly. "I'm chief of police. 12 years. I train others. I handle high-risk cases. I stop bad people before they hurt others." The boy's eyes widened. "And now," Maya continued, "I'm on a plane, where someone just hit me in front of everyone." The boy asked quietly, "What are you going to do?" Maya's eyes didn't move from the front of the plane. "I already did it," she said. Back in the cockpit, the pilot grabbed the radio and tried to send a report. But something strange happened. The radio crackled, and then a voice came through. "Control to Flight 782. This is Federal Aviation. Please confirm all crew and passenger behavior. You are being monitored. Repeat, monitored." The pilot's face turned white. "What is this about?" "Stand by for instruction," the voice said. He threw down the radio. "They never monitor private flights this way. Something's happening." The co-pilot looked nervous. "Sir, you hit someone. You know that, right?" "I didn't mean to," he barked. "She spilled the drink." The co-pilot shook his head. "That was turbulence. And that woman, she made one phone call. And the entire tower is now tracking us." The pilot sank into his seat. He was starting to understand. This wasn't going to be a normal landing. Back in the cabin, Maya checked her watch. Then she looked up and saw a man standing 2 rows ahead. He had short hair, dark sunglasses, and a calm face. He walked toward her and sat across the aisle. Quietly, he leaned forward. "I'm Air Marshal Daniels," he said in a low voice. "I received a silent code on this flight. It came from your badge number." Maya nodded. "I'm here to assist you," he added. "Orders just came through. We land in 1 hour. Police units will be waiting. What do you want to happen when we touch the ground?" Maya thought for a moment. "I want everyone to see that no one is above the law. Not even a man with wings." The air marshal smiled slightly. "Understood." He stood up and walked to the back, watching the passengers silently. Air Marshal Daniels stood at the back of the plane, eyes scanning every row. Most passengers were quiet now. Some still whispered. A few secretly recorded. Others stared at Maya with new eyes, eyes that knew she was not an ordinary woman. But the pilot didn't know everything yet. He only knew fear was starting to creep in. Inside the cockpit, Captain Wilkins sat frozen. Sweat rolled down his forehead. His co-pilot kept glancing nervously at him. "They're not answering my calls anymore," the pilot said. "Air traffic control isn't saying anything useful." The co-pilot spoke carefully. "Sir, when Federal Aviation says, 'You are being monitored,' that's not normal." Captain Wilkins slammed a fist on the control panel. "She played us. She set this up." "No, sir," the co-pilot replied. "You hit a passenger. In front of witnesses. On camera. The pilot's face turned red again. But this time, not from anger. From panic. In the cabin, Maya sat calm, her hands resting on her lap. The teenage boy beside her whispered, "Is he going to get arrested?" Maya didn't answer immediately. She looked ahead, where the air marshal walked slowly down the aisle. Air Marshal Daniels reached her seat. He nodded once. Maya nodded back. He then stepped toward the cockpit, but didn't enter. Instead, he stood right outside and spoke through the closed door. "Captain, this is Air Marshal Daniels. You are being formally observed under federal protocol. You will follow landing procedures without deviation. Do you understand?" There was silence. Then the pilot's voice, weak. "Yes, yes, I understand." The passengers heard it too. People started whispering louder now. The truth was crawling across the rows. A woman 2 seats in front turned around and spoke quietly to Maya. "I saw the whole thing. I recorded it. I can give it to the police if needed." Maya nodded. "Thank you. Just keep it safe until we land." The woman's eyes widened. "You're really the chief of police?" Maya gave a small smile. "Yes." And then, for the first time, the passengers began to feel something new. Safety. At the front, the pilot sat down in the cockpit seat, shaking. "They're going to fire me. I'll lose everything." The co-pilot said nothing. The pilot whispered. She didn't even fight back. She just made one call. That thought scared him more than the slap ever would. Back in the cabin, Maya closed her eyes. She wasn't just thinking about herself. She was thinking about every woman, every black woman, every officer, every traveler who had been disrespected, mistreated, or judged too quickly. Today wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. The teenage boy beside her looked nervous again. "Are they going to be mad that you didn't do anything right away?" Maya looked at him and said, "Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits." He asked, "What if you weren't a cop? What if it happened to someone else?" Maya paused. "Then I would still stand up for them, just like I'm doing now." At that moment, the flight attendant came down the aisle and stopped next to Maya. She looked nervous. "I'm sorry for what happened," the woman said. "We didn't know who you were." Maya opened her eyes. "That's the problem," she replied. "You shouldn't have to know someone's title to treat them with respect." The flight attendant looked down, ashamed. The plane began to descend. A voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our final approach into Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts." The entire cabin was still. Outside the window, the city lights grew closer. But inside the plane, the pilot's fear grew faster. In the cockpit, the co-pilot's screen blinked. "Order, RECEIVET, Gate 14, CQRITWUAATing. Holy Kiriu on board." The co-pilot read it aloud. The captain's face went blank. "They're waiting for me." The co-pilot nodded. Captain Wilkins leaned back in his chair. He had slapped a woman. He thought she was just a passenger. He was wrong. In the cabin, Maya checked her badge one last time. The teenage boy asked, "Are you going to arrest him?" Maya gave a quiet reply. "No, I don't have to. The law is already at the door." The wheels of the plane touched the runway with a loud screech. Passengers jerked forward slightly in their seats, gripping armrests as the aircraft slowed down. But no one was thinking about the landing. All eyes were on the front of the plane. Everyone knew something big was about to happen. The captain's voice came over the speaker, shaky and dull. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chicago O'Hare. Please remain seated as we taxi to the gate." But his usual proud tone was gone. His voice sounded like a man walking into his own trial. Maya Johnson sat quietly, hands folded. Her cheek was still sore from the slap, but her spirit, unshaken. She turned slightly and looked around the cabin. Most of the passengers were staring at her now. not with fear, but with respect. The teenage boy beside her whispered, "They're really going to arrest him, right?" Maya didn't answer yet. She just looked out the window, where the terminal building was coming into view. Then she saw it. 2 police SUVs, 3 uniformed officers, 1 airport security team. Waiting. Inside the cockpit, Captain Wilkins wiped sweat from his forehead. "Why are they here already?" he muttered. His co-pilot kept silent, but the fear on his face said everything. Suddenly, there was a knock on the cockpit door. 3 soft taps. The pilot didn't answer. Then came the voice. "Captain Wilkins, this is Air Marshal Daniels. Open the door." The captain looked at his co-pilot. "What do I do?" "You don't have a choice," the co-pilot replied. "They're already here." With shaking hands, the captain pressed the button and the door unlocked. Air Marshal Daniels stepped in. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just handed over a small paper. "Federal investigation notice. You are not to leave the aircraft. Officers are waiting outside." The pilot stared at the paper. His hands trembled. "This is really happening." The air marshal nodded. "Yes, Captain. You hit a federal officer in uniform, on a flight, in front of witnesses. But I didn't know she was." The pilot started to say. The marshal cut him off. "It doesn't matter who she was. You don't get to hit anyone. Ever." The plane finally stopped at the gate. The sound of the door unlocking echoed like thunder in the silent cabin. A ground staff member rolled the bridge toward the plane. The first officer opened the cabin door. And then the police stepped in. 3 officers walked straight to the front. Behind them, 2 men from internal aviation security followed with tablets in hand. One of the officers turned to the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We're here for a crew matter. This will only take a few moments." Gasps and murmurs filled the air. Phones were raised. Cameras rolled. The police stepped into the cockpit. Captain Wilkins didn't resist. He stood up, his hands already raised slightly. "Please," he whispered. "I didn't mean to." One officer replied, "You assaulted a passenger. You abused your position. And you endangered flight safety." As they handcuffed him, Maya stood up quietly and walked to the front. She didn't push. She didn't shout. She just stood there, face to face with the man who had slapped her. He couldn't even meet her eyes. Maya leaned in and said one line, soft but sharp. "You didn't see the badge, but you saw the skin. That was your mistake." Then she stepped back. The officers led him off the plane. Passengers watched as the once proud pilot, still in uniform, walked down the bridge in handcuffs. He didn't look like a captain anymore. Back inside the plane, the teenage boy stared in shock. "He's really gone." Maya nodded. "Justice takes time. But it always comes." A woman nearby stood up. "Thank you for standing up. For all of us." Maya smiled. As she stepped off the plane, reporters already waited outside the terminal. Someone shouted, "Ma'am, can we get a statement?" Maya paused. Then she said into the cameras, "Being powerful doesn't give you the right to hurt others. Being quiet doesn't mean you're weak. And being polite doesn't mean you'll stay silent forever." Flashbulbs lit the sky. Maya walked away, strong and calm, while the world finally learned who she was. The next morning, headlines filled the internet. Pilot assaults passenger, unaware she's police chief. Airline under fire after shocking incident on Flight 327. Passengers speak out. "We saw everything." News channels showed video clips of the slap, the arrest, and the calm woman in plain clothes walking down the terminal. But what made it more powerful was this one line. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just made one call. Inside the airport security office, Maya sat with federal investigators. She had already submitted her report. The footage from the cabin was reviewed. Witness statements were recorded. Still, the officer across from her asked again, Why didn't you react? You could have restrained him yourself. You're a trained officer." Maya looked at him and replied, "Because I wanted the world to see how power reacts to power, and how calm brings truth forward." The officer nodded slowly. "Fair answer. We've already confirmed the Air Marshal's report. The case is now in federal hands." Meanwhile, in another part of the city, the pilot sat in a holding cell. His uniform was gone, his badge removed. He looked tired and confused. A lawyer sat across from him. "They've suspended your license," the lawyer said. "The airline cut ties this morning. And Maya Johnson, she's not just a chief, she's one of the most respected law enforcement officers in the state." The pilot looked shocked. "Why didn't she tell anyone?" The lawyer leaned back. "She didn't need to." At police headquarters, Maya's team greeted her with quiet pride. One officer said, "Boss, we saw the news. Can't believe he touched you." Another added, "You handled it better than anyone else would." Maya gave a small smile. "We don't always fight with fists. Sometimes we fight with facts." A young officer stepped forward, holding a printed report. "This came in an hour ago. 3 other complaints have surfaced against that same pilot. 2 from last year, 1 from just weeks ago." Maya raised an eyebrow. "None of those made it to court?" "No, ma'am. They were all dismissed. Until now." Maya took a deep breath. Then it's time someone listened. Back in the city, public pressure on the airline was rising. Customers demanded answers. Social media exploded with hashtags like #RespectEveryPassenger, #JusticeInTheSky, #SheWasTheChief. Even former flight crew members came forward with stories of the pilot's bad behavior. One post read, "I quit that airline because of him. He always treated passengers with attitude, especially women and minorities." The airline's board rushed to control the damage. Press releases, apologies, promises of change. But it was too late. The damage was done. That night, Maya visited her mother. Her mother had seen the news. She pulled her daughter into a hug. "I saw you on TV, baby. You looked strong, just like your father would have wanted." Maya sat down at the kitchen table, finally letting her shoulders drop. "I didn't want it to happen this way, Mom." "I know," her mother said softly, "but maybe it had to happen, so others wouldn't go through the same." Maya nodded slowly. "It's not about being the chief. It's about being human. No one deserves to be humiliated for how they look or where they sit." The next morning, Maya received a call from the district attorney. "We're moving forward. Assault charges, misuse of authority, federal aviation violation." "Good," Maya said. "Let me know if you need anything." Before hanging up, the DA added, "And thank you, Chief Johnson, for showing us that justice still flies, even 30,000 feet in the air." Back at the station, one of her officers came running in. "Ma'am, a mother just called. Said her teenage son was on your flight. He wanted to thank you." Maya smiled. "That boy. He asked me what I would have done if I wasn't a cop." The officer tilted his head. "And what did you say?" Maya looked out the window and answered, "I would have stood up anyway, because that's what strength is." The investigation was moving fast now. But what no one expected was what they would find next. Maya received a call early in the morning. It was from an old friend, Detective Elena Ross, who now worked with the FAA's Special Misconduct Unit. "Maya," Elena said, "you need to come down to our office now." Maya replied calmly, "Is it about the pilot?" "Yes," Elena said. "And this time, it's bigger than just you." An hour later, Maya sat in a private meeting room. A thick folder sat in front of her, marked CO and FFID and TIL. Inside were 5 reports, 5 names, 5 stories, and 1 common detail. Captain Wilkins. Every file told a different version of the same horror. Passengers treated unfairly, insulted, ignored, or physically harassed by the same man. A Latina woman claimed the captain refused to let her board even though she had a valid first-class ticket. An Asian businessman wrote in a complaint that the captain once screamed at him for speaking another language on the phone. A single black mother was made to sit apart from her children on a flight and was told to stop causing drama. All complaints, all ignored, all signed off as passenger confusion. Maya's hand tightened around the report. She looked at Elena. Why weren't these taken seriously? Elena sighed. Because no one wanted to touch a senior pilot. He was protected, until now. Back at the airline headquarters, the mood had changed. Top executives were panicking. Lawyers crowded meeting rooms. Public relations teams tried to create damage control videos, but nothing worked. Every news story made things worse. Worse still, some of the crew had started speaking to the media. One flight attendant came forward and said, "Captain Wilkins treated his crew like garbage. We were scared to speak up. But after what happened to the police chief, we're done being silent." Meanwhile, Maya visited one of the earlier victims. Her name was Veronica Alvarez, a school teacher from Texas. They met at a small cafe. Veronica looked nervous. Maya smiled gently and said, "I'd read your report." It was brave. Veronica looked down. It didn't feel brave. They made me feel invisible. Maya replied, "But you weren't. You were the start of something. You just didn't know it then." Veronica looked up, her eyes wet. "Do you think he'll be punished this time?" Maya didn't blink. "He already is." The pilot, now under house arrest, was called in for an emergency hearing. Inside the courtroom, the judge reviewed not just Maya's case, but 4 other reopened complaints. The prosecutor stood tall and said, "Your Honor, this is not one bad day. This is a pattern. A man who thought his uniform made him untouchable." The defense lawyer tried to argue back, claiming Wilkins had a clean record and was under stress. But the judge raised one hand. "You slapped a federal officer. You humiliated passengers. And now, the truth is here." Then came the sentence. Captain Wilkins will face trial in federal court, and the FAA is permanently revoking his license. Outside the courtroom, reporters chased after Maya. "Chief Johnson, do you feel justice has been served?" She answered calmly, "Justice isn't a moment. It's a journey, and we're walking it together." That night, Maya sat alone in her apartment, flipping through the reports once more. She couldn't help but think about the others, those who had suffered in silence. She whispered to herself, "Maybe this wasn't just my fight. Maybe I was just the one who finally had the badge and the chance to stop it." Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from someone unknown. Just 5 words. "He hurt me too. Help." Maya stared at the screen. Another voice. Another truth. Another life touched by injustice.